I am Undersecretary Genesis Abbott of Group 1, MPSA RC29. Together with my group mates, Lamberto Antonio Jr., Erwin Apostol, Ramon Nanito Ayo Jr., Elias Pacifico Asuncion, Police Lieutenant Colonel Irene Abating, Police Lieutenant Colonel Solomon Alemania Jr., Police Lieutenant Colonel Ronel Bangalisan, Police Lieutenant Colonel Leslie Ann Beharin, and Engineer Joel John Ulep. We will be presenting our work on the topic Human Trafficking and Online Sexual Exploitation in the Philippines. Without further ado, let's begin the presentation.
Based on the consensus of our group and the background of our members, the issue we are solving together is the persistent and escalating threat of human trafficking, particularly online sexual exploitation of children, or OSEC. Children, especially those from impoverished and marginalized communities, are primary victims, facing severe physical, psychological, and emotional trauma. Studies by UNICEF highlight that nearly 500,000 Filipino children have been trafficked to produce child sexual exploitation material, often by relatives or people they know. Victims can be as young as a few months old, suffering long-term mental health issues, developmental delays, and difficulty forming healthy relationships. Families of victims often live in extreme poverty, which traffickers exploit. They bear immense emotional distress, guilt, and social stigma. In many OSEC cases, family members are tragically involved due to economic desperation or coercion. Indigenous peoples or the IP community and children in remote areas often lack access to education, information, and social services, thereby making them particularly susceptible to deceptive recruitment tactics. OFWs and their families, while not direct OSEC victims, can be trafficked for forced labor or sexual trafficking abroad, or their children left behind can become targets of OSEC due to the lack of parental supervision and economic hardship. And the big picture, the Philippine community at large. The widespread nature of OSEC crimes erodes public trust, strains relationships, strains social welfare and law enforcement resources, undermines the moral fabric of society, and damages the country's international reputation. So something must be really done about this.
The issue of OSEC is profoundly urgent and critical in the Philippine context since it primarily targets the marginalized sector. It also denies the victim of their fundamental rights and traps them in cycles of abuse and poverty, further widening the equity gap. Lastly, it's a national security concern since long-term societal impact of traumatized children leads to social instability and increased crime rates.
So, who are the key stakeholders in this fight against human trafficking and online sexual exploitation of children? A comprehensive approach in the Philippine setting will require a robust, multi-sectoral collaboration. For the government sector, the lead role should be with the different law enforcement agencies such as the PNP, NBI, and the Interagency Council Against Trafficking. Once the perpetrators have been apprehended, the judicial branch of our government may now proceed with the administration of justice for the victims. To support our law enforcement agencies, the DSWD, the Department of Education, and the Department of Information and Communications Technology, as well as the local government units, can provide for the policies required for awareness campaigns and support for the victims. As for the private sector, telecom companies may assist in tracing and blocking illicit content, while NGOs and civil society organizations and international partners are also critical in the effort to curb online exploitation since they may provide additional support through technical support, advocacy, and capacity building within the communities, considering the transnational nature of these crimes. Furthermore, educational institutions and religious organizations can provide localized data analysis, moral guidance, evidence-based interventions, and safe spaces for the victims' survivors. As for the groups who are often left out but should be recognized as critical in the fight against human trafficking and online sexual exploitation of children, they are first, the survivors themselves, second, youth organizations and their leaders who can serve as peer educators, third, parents and guardians from vulnerable communities as well as their barangay officials. And lastly, local business owners, particularly those in tourism and hospitality, because they can identify potential trafficking situations and can be trained to report suspicious activities.
So what are the behavior structures or failures that sustain the issue? These are the behavior structures or failures that sustain the issue. Human trafficking and online exploitation of children in the Philippines stem from deep-rooted issues, such as poverty and economic desperation, which push families into vulnerable situations. Moreover, many lack digital literacy and awareness of online dangers. On the other hand, weak social welfare systems and cultural pressures like utang na loob often enable exploitation. Meanwhile, traffickers exploit tech gaps and slow law enforcement. The judicial system struggles with limited resources in protecting child witnesses. Finally, global demand and community stigma worsen the crisis, fueling a cycle of abuse and silence.
What can we do together that no single actor can do alone? That is, to establish a robust, integrated Philippine Child Protection and Cybercrime Track Force at the regional level, supported by localized child protection hubs within communities. This framework based in each region would, first, centralize command and coordination to address fragmentation and ensure seamless data sharing and joint operations. Second, specialized digital forensic and cyber patrol unit. This would lead in intelligence gathering and identification of perpetrators and victims. The third is rapid response and rescue protocols. That is to ensure safety and dignity from the moment of intervention. Fourth, legal aid and prosecution support unit. This is to ensure efficient and victim-sensitive prosecution. The fifth is community-based child protection hubs, or what we call Bahay Pag-asa. These hubs would offer immediate shelter and basic needs, holistic psychosocial support, education and livelihood pathways, family restoration and alternative care, and prevention and awareness programs. The last would be Regional Data Management System. This is a secure, shared database among all IPCPCTF members agencies to track cases, victim profile, perpetrator networks, and program outcomes, enabling evidence-based decision-making.
In just 60 days, we rolled out a clear first-step plan to establish a child protection hub here in Butuan City. First, we called a key meeting with stakeholders to gain support and form a steering committee. Second, we quickly assess an existing facilities and check the capability of our personnel. Third, we launched a focus awareness campaign to inform and educate the public. And fourth, we train our frontline personnel on trauma-informed response to ensure they're ready to handle sensitive cases properly. This approach allowed us to set up a working, effective child protection hub on time and with real impact.
Effective leadership in addressing child protection and trafficking in the Philippines is very necessary. We will be asking what leadership behavior is needed. And this should be the leadership behavior we need to have. It should be a type of leadership behavior having deep empathy and compassion for victims. Leadership that has courage to confront difficult truths. Leadership that strongly inspires the interagency collaboration and trust building. Leadership that has strategic vision and adaptability. Leadership with high regard to accountability and integrity. Leaders that should have actively pursue funding and support both local and global for resource mobilization and advocacy. And leaders that have potential to empower the local stakeholders.
What changes do you want to see in people, systems, or relationship? On people, we aim a significant reduction in the number of children becoming victims of human trafficking in OSEC, especially in high-risk areas. We also want a holistic and reintegration by providing long-term psychosocial support, access to quality education, and opportunities for sustainable livelihoods to child survivors, and empowered parents and communities. On systems, we want a seamless justice system where victims are treated with dignity and perpetrators are held accountable through successful prosecutions and convictions. We also want a strengthened social protection net, a proactive digital security, and evidence-based policymaking. On relationships, on the other hand, we want a stronger multi-sectoral partnerships through collaboration with government bodies, increased community vigilance in reporting, and global leadership in anti-OSEC efforts.
My individual learning. Efforts to combat human trafficking and online sexual exploitation of children requires multi-stakeholder collaboration, equity-centered approaches, and bridging leadership to ensure sustainable and inclusive solutions. Multi-sectoral partnership of government, NGO, private sector, tech companies, law enforcement, and survivors are essential for comprehensive prevention, protection, and prosecution. No single entity can tackle trafficking alone. Collaboration amplifies impact. For equity, survivor-centered approaches prioritize the voices and agency of victims in policy and program design. Addressing root causes, cultural sensitivity, and economic empowerment is needed. Equity ensures intervention do not inadvertently exclude those most at risk. For building leadership, trust building among stakeholders like local law enforcement and NGO foster cooperation despite differing priorities. Bridging leadership transform fragmented efforts into a cohesive and scalable solution. Effective anti-trafficking and anti-OSEC effort require collaborative ecosystem, equity-driven strategies, and bridging leadership to dismantle systematic vulnerabilities and create lasting change.
Now that you've heard my group mates, please take some time to absorb the information you just received. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat.